Hey, what's going on, guys? So today we're talking about some interesting decks from over the weekend. This article, there's a lot of ads on this website, but as is tradition, um, this article was written by Ren, as is tradition. Ren is the go-to person writing these. This is on YGOProDeck.com. This is a Dragoon Subterror deck profile that we saw actually get all the way to first place at the Hungary Nationals over the weekend. So, not sure how competitive the Hungary meta game is, but any national championship is going to be fairly solid, fairly good. I'm not sure how many people were in attendance, but I do know that it has to be more than the locals, right? There had to have been at least like 40 to 50 people there, right? So this is probably a pretty solid deck, especially considering what the deck is, especially considering that we no longer have access to Verity Anaconda, right? So for the Subterror stuff, we do have one copy of Nemesis Archer. We do have just the one copy of Subterror Behemoth Umistrix, right? And then, of course, you got to have the 3 copies of Subterror Guru, 3 copies of Subterror Fiendus. And that's kind of it for the Subterror cards, or at least for the Subterror monsters, at least for the monsters in general, right? And we see this sort of style a lot of times when it comes to sort of tier 2 or below decks. When they top or do really well, it is usually because there's 8 cards. There's 8 Subterror cards that are monsters, and then of course you have Triple Hidden City, right? There's nothing against that. There's also the Trap card as well, so it's a decent amount. There's 10 Subterror cards, which isn't horrible. We are seeing just the 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. The interesting thing about Ash is that it's going to be good every format. There's never going to be a time or a situation where it's not going to be good. So it just, if that's your only hand trap, that's solid. I think the only hand trap that I've ever seen that's better than Ash is Max C. But even Max C has weird circumstances where it doesn't end up doing super duper well. Whereas Ash, it's either going to do fine or super duper well, right? Obviously, the one Dark Magician and the one Red Eyes Black Dragon. I would be curious to see why. I don't know if this is in English. I would assume it's not. But I'd be curious to see why they weren't running, Fusion Destiny and Celestial and Dasher instead of, the Red Eyes package. The only thing that makes sense to me is that there's 3 copies of Red Eyes Fusion and only 2 Fusion Destiny. But other than that, I'm not 100% sure. Because in my opinion, Dragoon is a very solid card. It is about as good as DPE. But having to run Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon over having to run Celestial and Dasher. Like, Celestial and Dasher they're actually 2 really solid cards by themselves. If you're able to get Dasher out, you contribute. It's a 3100 attack monster. Celestial can pop field spells and burn. So that's relevant in time. And then obviously there's the Dasher Summon as well as the Celestial Draw that most people think of when they think of that package. Whereas Red Eyes, Black Dragon, and Dark Magician don't really do anything. And if we look at Red Eyes Fusion as well, and that's the interesting thing, with this deck, it doesn't really matter too much, because this deck does do a lot of setting, right? Because if you've noticed this, it says you cannot normal special summon monster during the turn you activate this card. Subterror doesn't care about that, so that's cool. And maybe that was why they were doing the synergy. But anyway, 3 copies of Hidden City, like we talked about earlier, 1 Terraforming, 1 set rotation. While we're here, we are also running the Metaverse. I mean, there's 5 field spells, so we might as well. 1 Called by the Grave, 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, don't really need the extra deck. 1 Necro Valley, which is interesting. In the main deck, we're seeing the Necro Valley, and then 1, of course, Mystic Mine. Was kind of surprised we didn't see more Mystic Mine. It's kind of how this deck could do well, but this deck could do really well with it. Like, Subterrors under Mystic Mine could be pretty solid, because Subterrors don't usually spam the board with a lot of monsters. And the Necro Valley is interesting. Obviously Necro Valley works pretty well against Branded. It's actually not too bad against Sword Soul either. So I could see it. I see the Necro Valley. There's a lot of really good decks that are using the graveyard. This has always been a relevant card, and it always will be a relevant card. It's kind of like Ash. But for the trap cards, 2 copies of Subterror, Final Battle. 2 copies of There Can Only Be One in the main deck, which isn't too bad. 2 Strike, 3 Judgment, 2 Imperm. Like I said, 1 Metaverse, and 2 copies of Summon Limits, 41 card main deck, which I like. This is a really solid list, but I'm not a Subterror player. Subterror players, let me know in the comments down below. Is this a good list? We'll go to the extra deck real quick. As we are running the 1 Dragoon. Interesting, they're only running 1 Dragoon. This might be a situation where they only had one. I guess you have really no way of, recycling your targets. So I guess why not? And I think, Super Poly's in the side. Like I was seeing like these cards and these cards, like Super Poly has to be in the side. 1 copy of Invoked Elysium. I think this is just the side deck for Invoked, because we can. You can run this, so let's do it. Like, this is the same card. Like, this is the same situation where we can summon this card and really turn it on our opponent, right? Because, our opponent's got an Eldritch Trap and the Big Daddy Boss Nest, the Golden Lord monster, on the board. We flip Super Poly, and the game is just we have this card on the board, and now they don't have any, right? 1 copy of Duplex Chimera. Interesting. Okay, so we're running that for the Cybers. It's like a Salamangreat, Cybers 60 card kitchen sink with like Adventurer Punk. They've been kind of turning away from the Cybers. I think the best Cybers deck right now is probably going to be Salamangreat. But still, this is completely going to blow that deck out. Elder Entity Nitist, Draco Neko Nether Soul Dragon, Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. No Cyber Dragon though, so I'm not sure. Like I said, could just be could just be. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that one's doing. Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. And like I said, there is Pot of Prosperity. It's definitely possible that they're just running these cards just to banish them later. You're putting can I target this card with effects? I don't know why I'm reading it, but 2 copies of Mud Dragon of the Swamp. It's just a wild extra deck. It's a wild extra deck as we see 2 Drago Stapelia, 2 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and of course 1 copy of Predaplant Trimorphiatrium. So it's a pretty interesting little extra deck. I don't think it would be horrible to run like all Link monster. There's a lot of really solid generic Link monsters. Nightmare Cerebus, Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, IP Masquerade. IP Masquerade is not that great though, just by herself. But obviously Access Code Appaloosa. But overall, solid extra deck. 2 copies of Nibiru. It's a good side decked card right now. 3 Dark Rulers, 2 Cosmics, 1 Zombie Worlds. I think it's just, well, I guess we are running 3 different ways to get to it, so might as well, right? 1 Harpies, 2 Super Poly, like I mentioned before. Only 2 Super Poly is a bit weird as well, in my opinion, just because a lot of our extra deck monsters can only be summoned off of Super Polymerization. So I feel like maxing out on Super Polymerization just might have been the move here. Now, what card do we cut? Maybe cut the 3rd Dark Ruler no more for the 3rd Super Poly, because they kind of do the same thing. Something like that. But 2 copies evenly matched, 2 copies of D-Barrier. Like I said, if we call it D-Barrier calling Fusion, doesn't matter to us because we have our Subterror package, and that's where that kind of comes into play, as well as 2 Floodgates, and 3 different forms of disruption just in the traps alone, as well as a hand trap. The next deck list I wanted to talk about was Blind Second Floowandereeze, which is just such an insane title. This was also an article done by Ren, and this was from another kind of, I don't want to say wild, but a different, it was the Dominican Republic National Championships, and this got 2nd place there, right? But it's National Championships. Even if 50 people show up, like I said, if the tournament, in my opinion, 50 people at a tournament make whatever deck list and whatever player who got the top 4 very solid, right? If they're able to get their invite, to Worlds or to Nationals, they had to be doing something right. And going second Floowandereeze is not something we've really seen too often. So I'm just curious to see what this looks like. A lot of draw cards, but we are running 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Springs, 1 copy of the Barrier Statues, Stormwinds, 3 D Shifter, 3 Eaglin, 2 M-Pen, 3 Robina, 1 Stree, 1 Toucan, 1 Mist Valley Apex Avian, 1 Ryza. So the monster deck's fairly solid. Like, we're running the one hand trap that we can still use under D-Shifter, and we're obviously maintaining D-Shifter, and the ratios look super solid as well. Nothing super spicy in the monster lineup. But 2 copies of Book of Moon, very solid, going first card and going second card in Floowandereeze, because if we play our Robina, our opponent imperms or Veilers it, we chain Book of Moon, right? You guys should know that combo by now, but in case you didn't. That's why it's good going first, but it's also good going second. All right, our opponent has their Masquerade up. They have their Shao Shang, their Sorcerer level 8 monster up. We play Book of Moon. They don't have it up anymore. 2 copies of Dark Ruler No More, very solid going second card. 3 copies of Floowandereeze Advent of Adventure. 3 copies of the map. 1 copy of the Unexplored Wind. So pretty standard Floowandereeze lineup. Like, as far as just Floowandereeze is concerned, this is pretty standard, actually, what we've seen so far. But 2 copies of Lightning Storm. 1 Mystic Mine. It's interesting. 3 copies of Pot of Duality. 2 copies of Pot of Extravagance. 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity. 1 Terraforming. And, of course, 1 copy of Floowandereeze The Dreaming Town. The reason I kind of hesitated when I talked about Mystic Mine is just, I don't know. I feel like maybe cut down on the draw cards and run 2 other copies of Mystic Mine. Like, going second, maybe you're, I don't know, maybe, like, I mean, okay, you're running Terraforming as well, so in essence, we have 2 copies of Mystic Mine, but what is this deck doing that Floowandereeze is not doing, right? And the thing is, here's what I mean by that. Like, if this was a regular Floowandereeze deck, and it wasn't blinding second, then running 1 Mystic Mine might make sense. You know, you don't want to see it, you want to make sure you combo off. But going second, I feel like Mystic Mine is going to be super huge. We play it, we wait it out. Maybe they have a way to search it that I'm not thinking of, or maybe they're just like, I could just draw it. I'll just draw. And there is a lot of draw power. I'm surprised there's no upstart. For the extra deck, not super duper relevant. As we saw, there was 2 Extravagance and 2 Prosperity. But we are running the Instis, 1 copy of Makaba, 1 Cyber Dragon Nova, 2 Zeus, 1 copy of Downward Magician, 2 copies of Assembled Nightingale, 1 copy of Ricital Starling. I don't know why I hesitated with that. 2 copies of Nightmare Phoenix, just in case, because you never know. 1 copy of Ling Karibo, 1 copy of Zelmgren Almirage, 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Shurig Ominous Omen, and 1 copy of the Wind Charmer, which, I mean, obviously this deck can make it, but it doesn't, like, I don't really know what it's countering, other than the mirror match. But even the mirror match, you're not going to see a lot of cards in the graveyard. But what I like about this extra deck a lot is that, yes, we're playing Floowandereeze. Yes, it's blind second. No, we don't care about our extra deck. We're running 2 Extravagance, 2 Prosperity. But if a situation happens where we can use our extra deck, then we have cards for that. I'm curious to see if Ghost Reaper's in the side. There's no Ghost Reaper. Okay, because there's Ghost Reaper targets. Maybe these are just cards that they had. Because Ghost Reaper, I mean, like, you know, if you're running Ghost Reaper, you'd like to see a Masquerade or the level 8 Sword Soul card, which is crazy. I don't know. The Chao Fang? I don't know. It's not Chao Fang. But even so, you know, Ghost Reaper for Zeus, Ghost Reaper for Omen, you know, Activate Revolt, chain Ghost Reaper for Omen. That's pretty crazy. Ghost Reaper for Makaba, that's not bad. Ghost Reaper for Nova, that absolutely destroys Cyber Dragon. But like I said, if we're going to run, maybe we'd run a little bit different Ghost Reaper targets. I don't know why people are not doing that. Like, when they run decks like this that don't really care too much about the extra deck, why they're not immediately putting in Ghost Reaper. A lot of the decks that I've been playing, you know, Tri-Brigade, Salomon Great, they need their extra decks, right? But if you can run Ghost Reaper, you should. Now, I think the biggest drawback with Ghost Reaper is that you have to have the targets for Ghost Reaper, obviously, but it's still a very solid card. But anyway, 2 copies of Token Collector, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, another copy of Mystic Mine. Okay, so that makes sense. So we're kind of running 3 copies, so that's not too bad. 3 copies of Twin Twisters, 2 BD Barriers, obviously, 3 Evenly Matched. Surprised Evenly Matched isn't in the main going second. I guess we're trying to win. We're just trying to win. If we're going second, we're just trying to win, which I respect. Because Evenly Matched is really good going second, but it doesn't kill your opponent. Because you have to skip your battle phase. So I'm not sure why Evenly Matched isn't in the main, if I'm being honest. Like, if if I run a blind second deck, a lot of the cards I'm running in my side deck are first cards, going first cards, which D-Barrier is that, Mystic Mind could be that, but Heartbeats, Featherstorm kind of can go second, Evenly Matched goes second, Token Collector can go first or second, but really prefers to go second, but I guess, you know, it got second place for a reason, and, you know, side deck choices, extra deck choices aside, this is a very solid main deck. Like I said, standard flow stuff, and then Dark Ruler, Lightning Storm, just to let our opponent know that they're never safe. And then, moving on to an Evil Twin list that we saw, also an article done by Ren, the GOAT himself. And this was, I believe, a second place at Christchurch NZ State Championships. I'm not sure where that's at. But this was piloted by James, which I don't remember. I got to double check. You guys saw it in the video. I forgot to mention who the pilots were for the last 2 deck profiles. But anyway, this is an Evil Twin deck list. But it's probably not running Adventurer. Okay, heck yeah. So 1 copy of Artifact Scythe, obviously. 3 copies of Ash. 3 copies of Veiler. 1 copy of Evil Twin Kiskili Lila. 3 copies of Live Twin Kisiko. One copy of Live Twin Kisiko Frost. 3 copies of Live Twin Lila. 1 copy of Live Twin Lila Treat. And 2 copies of Parallel Exceed. It seems like 2 is the move now with Parallel Exceed. My always biggest issue with Parallel Exceed being at 2 is if you draw both copies of Parallel Exceed, it's dead. Right? Now, obviously, you're less likely to draw both copies of Parallel Exceed. But if you draw both copies of Parallel Exceed, when you have 3, at least the card's not completely dead. Right? But it seems like every list I've seen since then is 2, so I might just have to change that opinion. Like I think that's just wrong, and you have to run 2. That way you don't see that way you don't see 2 in your hand, right? Because if you're running 2, you're less likely to see 2. But 1 Call by the Grave, 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, 3 copies of Live Twin Home, 3 copies of Live Twin Sunny Snitch. 1 Monster Reborn. I like the artwork. 1 copy of Mystical Space Typhoon. 3 copies of Secret Password. 2 Triple Tactics Talent. 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier in the main deck. And 3 copies of Infinite Permanence. The reason I paused at the 1 Mystical Space Typhoon is this is a 41 card deck. So not only is this person running the Mystical Space Typhoon, but they're running it instead of running a 40-card deck. But Mystical Space Typhoon is the out, right? Since I don't really see an out to Mystic Mine in here. I don't know. You guys let me know if Evil Twins have the easy out to Mystic Mine. So I guess you just kind of hope. I mean, realistically, you don't need to run like 3 Cosmic Cyclones, 3 Mystic Space Typhoons, 3 Twisters, or whatever card you're running to out the Mystic Mine. You really just need 1, because in a lot of cases, your opponent's going to activate Mystic Mine. It's just like pass, draw, pass, draw, pass, draw. So I could see the 1 Mystical Space Typhoon. It's got to be for the Mystic Mine as well. But that's it for the main deck. For the side deck, we are running the Zeus Downward Magician package, obviously. 1 copy of number 41, Baguska. So the format is transitioning. We see 2 of the best decks right now are Fusion and Synchro based. Baguska says, no, those go in defense position. This is, in my opinion, this is the best rank 4, generic rank 4 in existence. And if you are running rank 4s, you should be running this card. There's not even like a lot of rank 4s in this deck. No, there's 2 cards that could, there's actually 0 level 4 monsters in this deck, right? But we can get to Parallel Exceed, which becomes level 4 and can get us to Baguska, right? And then the interaction between Baguska and Zeus, we play Baguska, our opponent, can't do anything, standby phase, detach, switch Baguska to attack, summon Zeus, nuke the board, play our game, right? It's such a fantastic interaction, and if you can run Baguska, you need to run Baguska. It's such a great card. But 1 copy of Sky Cavalry Centuria, obviously it's the level 2s. This is where we go. This is where you go if you got level 2s. This is very solid. Might be the best generic rank 2 card. 1 copy of Artifact Dogda, obviously. 3 copies of Evil Twin Kilissikil. 2 copies of Evil Twin Lila. 3 copies of Evil Twins Trouble Sunny. I don't know why I said it like that. 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and just 1 Transcode Talker. Just feels like something's missing. If you're running transcode, why not cut this to 2 or cut this to 2 and run access code? Not sure why there's no access code. Access code's a phenomenal card, but there's probably a legitimate reason. 1 copy of DD Crow, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, 2 Token Collectors, 3 Cosmic Cyclones, 1 Harpies, 2 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance, and of course, 3 copies of Evenly Matched. And we're seeing, I know I saw Evenly Matched in the last deck profile. I think it might even have been in the other one as well. Like, this is just such a phenomenal going second card. I've never loved it because it does skip your battle phase. But if you don't really care and your opponent can't do anything, that's the thing too. Like, this card's kind of been a bit power crept by like cards like Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplet, just because they can't be responded to, right? But if your opponent doesn't have this form of negation, like the trap negation, it could be easy. It could be GG's, and they're banished face down. It's very difficult to get banished face down cards back. But let me know what you guys think. Just a little bit different stuff here. Just talking about different deck profiles. Evil Twin, Floowandereeze, and of course Subterror. Alright, let me know what you guys think in those comments down below. Make sure you guys click that like button to show your support for the channel. Subscribe for even more content. But most importantly of all, have a good day.